In Jerusalem, a major road project is underway, but it's not about easing traffic jams. Archaeologists are opening an ancient path that Jewish worshippers used 2,000 years ago.
Imagine walking on the same stone path where ancient pilgrims, and possibly Jesus himself, walked to the Temple Mount. That path has been sealed underground since 70 AD. As of January 2026, you can now walk it. But here is the part most news outlets are not talking about. This road does not just connect 2 points on a map, it connects 2 points in history, the ancient past and what many believe is coming next. One end starts at a pool mentioned in the Gospel of John. The other end lands at the foot of the most contested piece of land on the entire planet. And right now, in Jerusalem, something is being built nearby that has not existed for over 2,000 years. This is not just archaeology, this is a countdown. And the clock just moved. Here is what was just opened to the public, and why it stopped historians in their tracks. The Pilgrimage Road is an ancient stone-paved street located in Jerusalem's city of David. It was built in the early 1st century, roughly around 30 to 31 AD. That is not a coincidence on the timeline. That places it directly within the period of the New Testament. The road stretches approximately 600 meters, just under 2,000 feet. And for most of that distance, it runs completely underground, beneath a living, breathing, modern neighborhood. It was the main road, the road every Jewish pilgrim used 3 times a year, during Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, to make their sacred journey up to the Temple Mount. Think about that for a moment. Every family, every merchant, every priest, every visitor to Jerusalem during those festival seasons walked this exact road. And according to archaeologists at the city of David, if Jesus existed historically, he would have walked it too. Now here is where it gets interesting. The road begins at one end near the pool of Siloam. If you have read the Gospel of John, that name should ring a bell. It is the same pool where Jesus is recorded to have healed a man who had been blind from birth. So this road starts at a miracle and ends at a mountain. But between those 2 points, something happened that buried it completely for 2,000 years. And that story is darker than most people realize. To understand why this road disappeared, you have to go back to one of the most devastating events in ancient history. The year is 70 AD. The Roman army, under General Titus, has surrounded Jerusalem. The siege has lasted months. Food is gone, hope is gone, and then the walls break. What follows is total destruction. The temple, the very structure this road led to, is burned to the ground. The city is torn apart, stone by stone, and the pilgrimage road, along with everything around it, is buried under layers of ash, rubble, and debris. For nearly 2,000 years, nobody walked it. Generations came and went. Empires rose and fell. Jerusalem was conquered, rebuilt, conquered again. And through all of it, this road stayed exactly where it fell, silent, sealed, and forgotten beneath the ground. Then, about a decade ago, archaeologists started digging. What they found was remarkable. The road was still there. The original stones were still in place. And beneath the road itself, they discovered a drainage channel, a hidden tunnel that historical accounts suggest sheltered Jewish residents during the Roman siege. They also found coins, weights, remnants of shop fronts that once lined the road on both sides. This was not just a path, it was a civilization, and now, for the first time since Rome destroyed it, people are walking on it again. But who showed up for the opening? And why their presence sent a message far beyond archaeology? That is what most people missed entirely. In September 2025, Israel held the official inauguration of the Pilgrimage Road. But this was not a quiet ribbon-cutting ceremony attended by archaeologists and historians. The guest list told a completely different story. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was there. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio was there. And U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee stood on those ancient stones in front of the cameras. Think about what that means for a moment. This was not treated as a local archaeology event. The presence of top-level American diplomats at an ancient road opening in Jerusalem signals something much bigger than a tourist attraction being unveiled. Rubio called it an extraordinary archaeological site. Netanyahu stood before the crowd and declared that Jerusalem is forever Israel's city and that it will never be divided again. Those are not words you say at a museum opening. Then, in January 2026, the road opened to the general public for the first time. Ordinary visitors, Christians, our Jews, tourists from around the world, began walking those stones. Groups of roughly 30 people at a time made the inaugural walk up the road toward the Temple Mount. Among the very first visitors was a Swiss Protestant named Jonathan Roos, living in Jerusalem. He described the experience as feeling like walking inside the Bible itself. And that reaction from an everyday visitor captures exactly why this opening is resonating with millions of people far beyond Jerusalem's city limits. But not everyone celebrated. Critics argued that the diplomatic presence at the opening, particularly from the United States, sent a political signal about sovereignty over contested land in East Jerusalem. That tension is real, and it is not going away. Because the road does not end at a neutral location, it ends at the foot of the Temple Mount, and what that mountain represents to three major world religions is where this story truly begins to accelerate. For Jewish people around the world, this road opening is not simply a historical moment. It is personal. For generations, Jewish tradition has carried the memory of the temple, its destruction, its absence, and the hope of its return. That memory is woven into daily prayers. It is embedded in the Jewish calendar. It is present at the Passover table every single year. And now, for the first time in 2,000 years, Jewish visitors can physically walk the road their ancestors walked to reach that temple. The Israel Antiquities Authority captured it simply when they said, "We have been waiting for this moment for 2,000 years." That is not a marketing statement. That is the weight of an entire civilization speaking. For Orthodox Jews in particular, this moment carries deep prophetic meaning. Jewish tradition holds that the temple will be rebuilt in the Messianic age. Walking this road is not just reconnecting with the past. For many, it is a step toward what they believe is coming. And the preparations being made right now in Jerusalem go well beyond a walking tour. The Temple Institute, an organization based in Jerusalem, has already completed detailed architectural plans for a future temple. Sacred vessels have been recreated according to ancient specifications. Priestly garments have been made. The groundwork, both spiritual and physical, is being laid quietly but consistently. And there is one more element connected to ancient temple ritual that has been making headlines. Something involving a rare animal, a specific color, and a purification ceremony that has not taken place in 2,000 years. That piece of the puzzle is coming. But first, what does this road mean to the 1 billion Christians watching from around the world? For Christians, this road carries a weight that is almost impossible to put into words. Because this is not a road that simply reminds believers of something they read in a book. This is the actual road. Archaeologists at the City of David have stated plainly, if you accept that Jesus existed as a historical figure in 1st century Jerusalem, then the probability that he walked this specific road is as close to certain as archaeology can get. Every Jewish male was expected to make the pilgrimage to the temple during the major festivals. Jesus was Jewish. He observed the festivals. The Gospels record him traveling to Jerusalem multiple times, and this road was the road into Jerusalem's temple. There was no other route. And it starts at the pool of Siloam, the very location recorded in the Gospel of John where Jesus restored sight to a man who had never seen a single day of his life. So for a Christian visitor standing at that pool and then walking that road, they are not reenacting a Bible story. They are retracing actual steps. One of the first visitors to walk the road publicly described it as feeling like the Bible had come alive beneath his feet. And that response has been echoed by believers from across denominations, Protestant, Catholic, and evangelical alike. But beyond the personal and spiritual experience, there is a prophetic dimension that evangelical Christians in particular are watching very closely. Because Christian eschatology, the study of end times events, places Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, and a rebuilt temple at the center of what many believe are the final chapters of human history. And here is the part that connects everything together. The road that just opened to the public does not end at a park or a museum. It ends at the base of the Temple Mount, the same Temple Mount where what many consider the most prophetically significant structure in history once stood, and where many believe it will stand again. This is where everything converges. The first temple was built by King Solomon and stood for nearly 4 centuries before Babylon destroyed it in 587 BC. The second temple was rebuilt, expanded magnificently by King Herod, and stood until Rome burned it to the ground in 70 AD, the very event that buried the pilgrimage road. For 2,000 years there has been no temple. But the conversation around a third temple is no longer happening only in religious circles or prophecy conferences. It is happening in Jerusalem right now, in concrete and measurable ways. The Temple Institute has completed full architectural blueprints for a third temple structure. Sacred vessels required for temple worship, the menorah, the altar, the priestly instruments, have been painstakingly recreated according to ancient specifications described in the Hebrew Scriptures. Priestly garments have been sewn and fitted. Training for temple service has been underway for years. And then there is the red heifer. In ancient Jewish law, a completely red heifer, a cow with no blemish and no non-red hairs, was required to produce the ashes used in a specific purification ritual. Without that purification, temple worship cannot resume according to Jewish law. Several red heifers meeting those ancient specifications were brought to Israel in recent years. Their presence generated significant attention from both Jewish and Christian prophecy communities worldwide. The Book of Numbers describes this ceremony. The fact that it is being actively revisited and practiced in Israel today is something both Jewish rabbinical authorities and Christian theologians are watching with great interest. And then there is the Kedem Center. A large underground visitor center is currently under construction directly adjacent to the Temple Mount. It is being designed to receive and accommodate millions of pilgrims. The pilgrimage road, the one that just opened, feeds directly into this vision of large-scale access to the Temple Mount area. Infrastructure, blueprints, vessels, garments, purification ceremonies, a pilgrim road now open to the public. Each of these things alone could be considered interesting. Together they form a picture that is harder to dismiss. Now here is the tension that sits at the center of all of this. As the Temple Mount is currently home to the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, 2 of the most sacred sites in Islam, any physical move toward constructing a structure on that mountain would represent one of the most sensitive and complex moments in modern history. That tension between ancient prophecy and present-day reality is not theoretical. It is the reason this road, these stones, and this moment are being watched not just by believers, but by governments, diplomats, and world leaders who understand exactly what is at stake. And what happens next on that mountain may be the most significant question of our generation. So here is where we land. A road buried for 2,000 years is now open. It was built during the time of Pontius Pilate. It was destroyed by Rome. It was forgotten by the world. And in January 2026, ordinary people began walking it again for the first time since the temple fell. But a road always leads somewhere. And this one leads to a mountain that the entire world cannot agree on. A mountain that 3 major religions each hold sacred. A mountain that has sat at the center of more conflict, more prayer, and more prophecy than any other piece of ground on earth. The pilgrimage road is open. The blueprints exist. The vessels are ready. The ceremonies have begun. And somewhere in Jerusalem right now, decisions are being made that historians may one day mark as the turning point. The road is open. The question is, where does it go from here?